Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So as usual today we're going to go into the market, discuss essentially what happened, and yeah, today was quite, like I said, an interesting day, like I said in yesterday's video, right? A very, very important day. So unfortunately the CPI came out hotter than expected by a few basis points. I think it was expected to be 8.3, came in at 8.6 maybe something. I forgot the exact number, but essentially it was hotter than expected, which is pretty much not what you want to be seeing. So that's where the market's kind of sold off today. Now, Tesla ending the day down just a tad over 3% at $696.81, just shy of $700, which isn't that bad. And the reason I say it's not that bad is because, well, the QQQ is down 3.6% almost, 3.57 to be specific. The fact that Tesla's only down just a tad over 3 is actually quite impressive in my honest opinion. And the reason is because usually, like I said several times, the QQQ usually... so in this case, if it's down 3.6%, that means Tesla will be down about what, maybe 7% at least, right? So in my opinion, Tesla outperforming the market, but nonetheless, still quite a painful day. So let's talk about what we can expect for next week and what does this really mean? Like, is it over? Like, are we just falling off a cliff from here on out? Again, I still don't think so. I still think, I'll be honest though, it's not looking as good as it did, but with that being said, I actually don't think it's over yet. I still think there is essentially like a final shot left, for us to have a chance to get some kind of, green, some nice green here. So we'll discuss that here. So first and foremost, let's take a look at the indices very quickly because again, this affects Tesla, right? So you always want to pay attention to how, SPY, QQQ, and the VIX are doing because it does affect Tesla. So overall, you can see the SPY now. We're essentially in a bear flag. Now I'm drawing it for now temporarily just to see how I can maybe get an idea of it. But all in all, the main thing you want to watch out for, in my opinion, on the SPY at the moment is going to be to hold the 0.786 Fibonacci level over here, which is pretty much 388, right? You essentially want to hold somewhere around there. Like if that fails, then pretty much, number one, we're definitely going to 380 first and foremost, and number two, it gets, there's much more weakness than we want to see, I guess is the easiest way to put it, right? Same thing with the QQQ, similar concept, except it's already closer to that level, so we want to make sure we hold this ideally. And then the last thing that's very important to look at, probably the most important thing other than Tesla, in my opinion, is the VIX, right? The VIX, you can see here, we're still in this kind of massive wedge, if you will. And then we did bounce off the bottom line, which I showed you guys a few days ago. Bounced extremely aggressively off of it as well. Like that was essentially a from the lowest point to the highest point, pretty much a 25% move, which is in 2 days is obviously quite insane. But essentially, we're in this little kind of wedge, right? So in my opinion, the easiest way to determine what the market is actually going to be doing is pretty much once this wedge finally gets broken out, essentially, like whether it's to the upside or to the downside, once this wedge happens to break to a certain direction, that's pretty much going to indicate, where we're going to go in the next while, in my opinion, easily like the next month or two even potentially. So that's going to be extremely important. So I would highly recommend if you have your own charting and stuff like that to, at least get a rough idea of this as well. So you can pay attention to it as well. You're not just waiting for me because, it can happen in the middle of a day and then that's it. It's happening and it's, you better react sometimes if you care about it, right? Or do something if you want to hedge or whatever. So this is extremely important that you want to really watch out for this, right? So again, once it breaks out to one of the sides, in case you're not aware, if it goes to the upside and breaks upwards, then we're plummeting. If it breaks to the downside down here, then we're skyrocketing. That's like the easiest way to think about it. You can see so far we did get rejected today, pretty much at this kind of 29.5 level, which is good. I was hoping to see a rejection somewhere around the 29.5 level, which we did see, and we closed that under 28 actually. So that's a good sign so far. That is giving us, at least some hope that, there's still a chance to at least get some kind of relief rally. But again, I would highly recommend watching this if I were you. And the final thing, of course, is, Tesla itself, right? So similar to the Fibonacci levels on the SPY and the QQQ, right? Tesla itself is also doing decently well, actually bouncing right off the 618, which is a decent Fibonacci level to bounce off of. Like I actually like seeing that on a retracement. It's a good level to bounce off in my opinion. So we're so far holding it, which is essentially that 685 roughly level, which is a good sign. I do like that actually, which is again another sign that I personally like. The fact that we're holding that, makes me feel kind of good. I'm not losing faith just yet, even though of course things are looking a little bit more grim. You can see on the RSI we are bouncing bouncing off the median line over here, which is a decent sign as well, right? That's something to definitely pay attention to. On top of that, on the daily, we can see that we are also kind of bouncing off this red line that I talked about several times, right around that 700 level. So that's also not too bad. We are just barely holding above it, though. Again, I will say we are kind of holding on by a thread at this point, it feels like, but nonetheless, the thread is still there. That's still something to, have some hope on. But again, just essentially, I would definitely, recommend caution, I guess is the easiest way to put it, because yeah, this is it's looking weak. Now that's not to say that we can't rally from here, we definitely can, but again, things are starting to look a little bit more weak overall. So just keep those, like, the main reason is because we are like so close to like a true breaking point that you want to be really careful with what you're doing here. Again, like Tesla holding this just barely with the Fibonacci levels and everything, this the RSI, with the indices just kind of holding on by thread, the VIX just like looking like it's wants to just break out to the north over here. Like, you want to really be paying attention to all these because it's getting really tight and really close, and again, we're just hanging on by thread in my opinion. So very, very important thing to keep in mind. Now the next thing we can take a look at, of course, as usual, is the Bollinger Band. Once again, we got rejected by it. You can see on the white part, it came up, filled the gap that we created this morning essentially, and then we got rejected straight down to the south. Once again, getting rejected by the Bollinger Band. That's nothing good that we want to be seeing. We're still well below the EMA, so that's not something to pay attention to just yet, so that's fine. We'll leave it as is. And the final thing to look at, of course, is going to be the moving average, right? So we'll take a quick look at the 5 and 10. So the 10 moving average, you can see we're well below the 10 moving average, so that's like hardly anything to pay attention to at the very moment. But in case you are wondering, the 10-day moving average is somewhere around this kind of 730-ish level. 5-day moving average kind of coinciding with the Bollinger Band, also rejecting us today as well. So we're below the moving averages, we're below the Bollinger Band. So again, things are looking overall, again, like I said, more grim than before, which isn't good. But again, I would still say the final thread that we have, or hope that we have to cling on to, for some kind of rally, is one, we're still above the trend line and we bounced off of it and we closed essentially just right on top of it. It's close, I'm not gonna lie. Unfortunately below 700, but it's still something that's fine. It's passable for now. We're still holding the head and shoulders pattern. We pretty much tapped the 680-ish level, got very, very close to it, bounced off of it again, kind of like how we did here, which is good. So the head and shoulders pattern is still holding, which is a good sign as well. So there are still signs giving us hope. This still, to me, looks relatively like a bull flag, so there's still hope, right? But again, we want to stay outside the trend line. We want to stay above 680 in my opinion. I don't want to go far below 680 at all, and if we do, I want it to get sucked back up as fast as possible, right? And I don't want to see the VIX break out of this to the north, of course, in terms of having a rally. So those are the things that I would be paying attention to and are extremely important to monitor essentially. Assuming you're trading or whatnot, right? If you're an investor, who gives a shit, right? If it drops, cool, whatever, you buy more and just check back in 5 years, right? But if you're trading, or you want to kind of try to like min-max it, if you will, a little bit, or hedge even, right? Things like that. Those are the levels to pay attention to the downside especially, so that if those things start cracking and the VIX starts skyrocketing out of this wedge, that's when you probably want to start looking towards potentially, hedging, or maybe even now, maybe as things are skyrocketing. Of course, each person has their own method of doing it, so I'll leave that up to you to decide, but not financial advice as usual. Make your own decisions on that, but it's something to pay attention to, which is of course extremely important. But yeah, there's not a whole lot more to say, guys. One thing we can look at, of course, is going to be the weekly. As usual, the weekly candles. Once the week actually finishes, is not a bad thing to look at. Again, just not the most beautiful red candles that we're seeing here. Like, just, I mean, not great at all. Slightly better than this one in my opinion, but man, just hardly better. Like, really, it's just not much better at all. Just overall, just definitely showing weakness. Nothing to be, in my opinion, that excited about. Nothing that screams like, oh my god, it's amazing, we're gonna just skyrocket to an all-time high tomorrow. Nothing at all is screaming anything even remotely close to that. But again, I'm still hopeful that there is still some juice left for a bit of a rally, a little bit of a relief rally, which I personally think, if it happens, we're essentially going to be setting up a bear flag on Tesla, potentially, where we dropped here. That's a high, that's a low, potentially set a little bit of a higher high, maybe again up to like, somewhere in the mid to low 800s, maybe even like 840, potentially set up a higher high, and then that essentially will form a bear flag, something like this. I'll show you guys what I'm potentially seeing here, something like that. Let me see, let me go here. Well, I don't know what that is. I don't know why that's there. I was writing down my nutritions and apparently I had that copy pasted. Right, but the idea is, you can see something like something like that roughly, you know, give or take, right? Again, a very rough way of looking at it, but you know, this is definitely a possibility, right? We can have this kind of bear flag setting up where it's like a 1, 2, 3, potentially 4 coming up, which again would lead us to that mid 800 level, which is possible still. But again, even if that happens, as long as we maintain it, to me, this is nothing but a bear flag regardless. So ultimately, regardless of the path we take here, in my opinion, I think we're still overall net bearish. It's just a matter of, do we get a nice little rally all the way up here somewhere to the mid 800s before dropping potentially even lower than this low over here, or do we just go straight down from here? That's essentially the main question I'm personally trying to, you know, answer. And again, like I said, it's looking less hopeful in my opinion, but there are still a few things that we can kind of, you know, cling on to, and a few threads of hope that are still there, that are giving us a little bit of, you know, light at the end of the tunnel, if you will, right? Again, mainly being above the wedge, mainly having the head and shoulders pattern still intact and holding above the 680, the VIX getting rejected, and the SPY and the QQQ hopefully bouncing off of this, off of these levels, the 0.78 levels over here, being 388 for the SPY roughly, and of course around 288-ish for the QQQ. So that's essentially what I'm seeing, guys. Let me know what you think down below. And yeah, that's pretty much all it is. Next week should be a very interesting week. I mean, at this point, every single week is more or less interesting because we're just constantly it feels like we're constantly just hanging on by thread. It's a wild market. It is a wild market, but it is what it is. So yeah, let me know what you guys think down below. But thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on Monday. Peace.